And we are live.
Bow, bow,
Pew, pew,
bow.
pew, pew.
I
What's
need my
up?
button back.
You do. Where's the button, bro?
I gotta find it. It's one of these boxes.
Come on, man. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, you're all
I'm letting the team down.
letting the team down. We need that button. We need.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to get a button, like the backup button.
Yo, get a button. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
pretty
gotta.
easy to get actually. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, send me a link, man. Let me
I
get the
bet.
button. Either way, what's up, everybody? LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. What's up? We're back. Another episode of The Good Life. As always, got Kabi here in the building. Say what's up, Kabi.
What up, though? All right, Detroit. Listen. We're just gonna have to form a friendship here because that thing rolls off the tongue, man. Rolls off the tongue. I'm gonna have to do it.
They're gonna run up on you one day. Somebody with a D hat on.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, say it now. Say it now.
Shout out Jalen Rose, shout out Rob Parker, shout out all these boys from Detroit, man.
Listen, you can't just call names, just name drop and think you're a part of the city. That's not the way it works.
No, we're family, man. We're family. I'm gonna end up adopting the Lions.
No, shout out E40, shout out Too Short,
yeah.
shout out LaRussell, area. I'm not from there, but
I live there, but I ain't from there. I got too much respect for those dudes that had to work their way up, how to earn the name. I feel like I haven't fully earned the name yet. Lived in Boston, didn't earn the name, don't want it. I said it. All those people coming hard at me in the clip from the Northeast. Nah, I'm repping no Northeast. Okay, I say it with my chest. All right, no Northeast.
That Northeast clip is legendary, and that's gonna live on forever. And you might never be welcome in these parts ever again.
That's all right, man. I'll take the Southeast over the Northeast for sure. Better music, right? Better hip hop.
Just stop.
The best.
Bro.
Hey,
you want to keep going with this? Really?
Listen, I'm gonna put this out there, and I'm gonna let it be. Best region music, Southeast. Much better than the Northeast, man. Southeast.
I don't even know if I need to address this.
It's Southeast.
Absolutely.
We can start. Let's start naming them. You know what I'm saying? Like T.I., right?
Listen,
you got the Migos, right? Just Atlanta alone. Do I need to make my case? Atlanta alone. I know New York was the birthplace and whatnot.
Show respect.
I get it.
Exactly.
I get it. I do pay respect. I get it.
Show respect.
I get it.
The Northeast is where it originates from. Therefore, wherever the original is, everything else is just a copy. Everything else is everything else is just a copy.
Even Jay said it. You made it a hot line. I made it a hot song. Just because it's the original don't mean it's the best. You always gotta pay respect to Mecca, that's for sure. You have to pay respect to Mecca, but we evolve. It's like the old heads saying, basketball players these days, and blah 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 blah. They're faster, they're stronger, they're taller, they got better handles, they shoot better. It's all right. It's okay. It's okay to admit it.
Nobody put up 100 like Wilt though.
Well, that's because other competition was trash.
I guess you could.
You got Bob Cousy out here dribbling with one hand, the right hand going left. Come on, man. Come on. Shout out Bob Cousy. Shout out Bob Cousy. And while we're at it, they need to change the logo. We're done with Jerry West.
They do need to change the logo for
make
sure.
That MJ. I'm cool if you want to make it Kobe.
I don't think they can make it MJ. It would have to be a different. Because that's too much of his brand built in to the NBA.
Yeah. That's a good point. Jumpman, it can't be Jumpman.
Yeah, it can't be. That's like a whole thing.
MJ, you did it to yourself.
Did it to himself.
You did it to yourself. Wow, that's a massive brand. That's a good point. How do you feel about, while we're derailing this here, how do you feel about Bill Russell's number being retired across the NBA?
I think it should be. He's legendary. Again, go back. Take it way back. Like, he is one of the all-time great big men that ever played the game, right? And so it should be retired. Cross it. Like, it should.
I got an unpopular opinion.
Say it.
Shout out to the legend, Bill Russell. Love the man. Endured a lot in Boston. You know, one of, if not the most quote unquote racist sports town out here. I didn't experience it myself, but partly because I wasn't an athlete at that level, of course. But this whole story about people defecating in his bed, I don't know why you would do that to one of your own local heroes, but to endure all of that and still be an upstanding citizen, right? Still rep the town, still show so much love and respect. That's God bless him. God bless him.
Yeah.
But one, I think, I don't know about doing it when they did it. If it should have been done, it should have been done while this man was still alive to enjoy it. Right. It should have been done a long time ago. Right around the same ilk as 42, Jackie Robinson, right?
Yeah.
I believe around the same time frame, but they did it like what, 15, 20 years ago? I'm not sure when they retired it.
Something like that.
It should have been something like that, right? Because obviously he died young. We get it. Died, I think, in his 50s. All right, died young. We get it. But Bill Russell, this man was already recognized by the intergalactic community, right? Everybody already recognized. He got the medal. Didn't he get like a medal from the president's office or something like
that? I feel like he did.
Already, and then you wait for him to die before retiring in his jersey or cross. I don't know. It seemed to me like once again, the NBA and the NFL and the MLB and all these people that are so reactionary, right? They're always looking for, how can we improve the company line? Let's test the air. Where's the wind blowing? All right. We're not gonna suspend Deshaun Watson right away. We're gonna wait until everybody complains about it, and then Roger Goodell is gonna come in and save the day, right? Or Bill Russell, everybody's really upset. Okay, now we're gonna do it, right? It just seems like the company that's they wait for a civil rights issue to break out, and then the guy comes out, the guy they hired, usually the token black guy, comes out. The company stands with black people. Come on. Like everybody feels the lack of authenticity there.
Fair. That's a fair point. It might be an unpopular take, but that's a fair point. I think we're living through a time right now that it's brand over people. Like it be like your brand and kind of your kind of front facing, like what the people say about you is actually, it's super important these days. So I think sometimes that supersedes the right and wrong conversation, right? Like what should be done internally. Some people just don't stick behind any beliefs. They're just kind of wavering and pandering to what the public would say. And I think that's happening in a lot of sectors, not just sports, but it's happening in a lot of sectors. So it's a fair point, man. It's a fair point.
It's a shame, man. It's a shame. You want to give these companies some credit, these conglomerates, these organizations. You want to give them credit that they are taking steps, that they are doing things, but I almost feel like it's a losing battle.
Yeah.
It's a losing battle. And it's always tough, because the founder usually has, and we've talked about this before. I think the founder is always a little bit different than the accelerator or the whatever name you want to put to it. But the founder is always different. Founder has very strong, it's huge visionary, right? Has a very clear idea of where they want to go, how they want to build things, where they stand, what are the has a very firm foundation, right? And once the founder is kind of like out of the way, I think the organization, the institutions start to really lose their way as to where they are. And they almost have to, reinvent themselves. You see this quite a bit, whether it's organizations, even teams, right? You see teams when they change coaches and whatnot. So it's very, very interesting stuff. A lot of stuff going on in the sports world.
Yeah. Living through some crazy times right now, right? People are, super judgmental about what's happening and kind of where businesses choose to plant their flag or take a stand. And it could make or break a business. And if businesses care about their bottom line and less about their message or kind of their values, their core values, it's easy for them to waver to what the people want, and people are crazy. And
Crazy. Yeah, that would be. Yeah. Yeah.
but either way,
All
guys,
right. What are we talking about today?
we're here. What are we talking about tonight on The Good Life? What episode? We're episode 80, 81? I don't even know what this is, man.
That's a great question. I believe
Yeah,
we
who
are
knows?
episode 81.
Episode 81, right? Getting closer to that episode 100, right?
Hey.
Listen, we're excited.
Can't be on episode 81 without paying homage to great Kobe and Jalen Rose, man. You know, 81 points, 81 olives, one of the greatest commercials of all time. Ash, feel free to insert the commercial somewhere in here or a link to it, man. It's a great commercial. You know, have you seen that one?
I don't know that I have.
Oh man, Jalen Rose is sitting down at a restaurant. Up walks Kobe. Kobe goes, Jalen Rose. Then a waiter comes up. It's like, ask Jalen, what's your order? What do you having to drink? And he orders a drink that involves some sort of olives, and I don't know what drinks that involve olives because I'm not well versed.
Martinis.
There we go. Thank you. I appreciate that. Restaurant scene, guys. Restaurant scene.
That's right.
Orders a martini. It's like, waiter asks, how many olives would you like with that? One or two? Kobe butts in and says he'll have 81. And there's a dramatic pause. And Jalen Rose looks at her like, really, Dark? Really? Really? Yeah, okay. I only guarded you out of 20 of those points. Really?
Shout out to Kobe and Jalen. Shout out to Kobe, man. God rest his soul. 81 points. That's such a feat. Watching that man play was awesome. I remember going to, everybody has like a Kobe story, right? Like I went to Staples Center Christmas 2014 Christmas game, 2014 maybe.
Say that.
Yeah, like if anybody hasn't been to Staples Center is like super like
crypto.
Cramped. Yeah, excuse me, crypto.com arena now, right? Jeez Louise.
Speak about marketing.
Crypto.com center or whatever it's called. But yeah, I was there, and man, when you're not sitting on the floor, you're not sitting, and even when you are sitting on the floor, like they pack you in like sardines, bro. Like I've been to some stadiums before, I've been to some arenas before. Obviously, like being at the Sixers arena, I used to work at the Heat arena down in Miami, and like Staples Center or crypto.com arena or whatever it is, super tight. Like you're just shoulder to shoulder. But remember getting a chance to see young Kobe over there. It's just, great to watch greatness. Great to watch greatness. That's what we're here talking about anyways, greatness, because that's how you get to the good life, right?
Never been. But hopefully we'll check it out when we're down in LA. I've been to a Celtics game and a Warriors game, actually. I've been to a Warriors game as well.
That's got to be live. Warriors game. Well, I mean, now, like post, what, 2017, 2016?
When they started being good?
Yeah, when they started being good.
Yeah, the tale of two teams, Clippers and Warriors. Right, as it was a point in history where one took a left and the other took a right. Shout out Chris Paul.
Anyway, today's episode, man, we've digressed so much talking sports, but it's all good. We're following up on last week's episode. For those of you that got a chance to tune in last week, we started talking about health and wealth professionals and what all these names are. Who do you go see when you need help? Who actually specializes in what? We're diving into a bunch of those types of things, and we knew we needed a part 2 because there were some specific things on both of our sides that we know we didn't get a chance to touch that people probably have questions about. So we wanted to take today to dive into a couple other professionals in both the health and wealth side that maybe you don't quite know what they do, or that's who you need. We're going to try to clear that up a little bit for you today.
Let's do it.
Let's go. You got the list, bro?
We got the list. You want to start on the health side? Let's make it happen. Or the wealth side. Let's touch the health side real quick with all these specialists. Let me give an overview, and then we'll pop back onto the wealth side because I was looking at this. And what's really interesting, as you know, I'm studying traditional Chinese medicine, which a lot of people will not know. It's really an entire system. right? So you have the Western medical system, and you have traditional Chinese medicine, which in and of itself is a whole system that comprises of 5 different modalities, and you utilize a combination of those 5 modalities to treat conditions both internally and externally, which is very unique because that's not how it happens in the Western model. And of those 5 modalities, the most popular one is acupuncture, and that's what a lot of people know. They'll call people acupuncturists. And now, you can specialize, but typically, traditionally speaking, a doctor would be well versed in all 5 of those modalities. And here on the Western side, specialization is actually very common. The only folks that don't really specialize is your family physician, your pediatric physician, really are the 2, and maybe your geriatrics, right? The geriatrics. Thank you, brother. Where you are zooming in on a particular population, and you might deal with a whole bunch of conditions that are common in that population. So they're apart from that, though, everybody else really is very, very specialized. Oh, 5 modalities, but that's not the case, which I think is really interesting. So looking on the West side here, we look at, for example, you've got your internal medicine physician, which is different than your pediatric, your general family physician, right? And they focus on the adult equivalent, right? So, and then you get into a whole bunch of specialists. You get those doctors that deal with allergies, doctors that deal with skin, doctors that deal with eyes, doctors that deal with, and a buddy of mine, OBGYN, which is, I actually found out this weekend as I was talking to him, are actually very different, right? There's one that deals with like routine care for women, and one that deals with actually delivering babies, right? And that would be the OB side, and the GYN is the routine care side, and particular removal of certain things, or like surgically removing of certain things, right? So that's very, very 2 very different things, and you can go pretty deep into both sides. You can actually have doctors that deal with just one side of those, right? So I didn't know that. No,
yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. Honestly, just hearing OBGYN, I was like, oh, that's the woman doctor.
Yeah, right. Right. And you don't know. I actually had a buddy that just had a child as well, and like he's like, man, there's so much you don't know until it's sitting right in front of you. All right. And the process has changed so much over the decades, over the years, centuries, where it used to be, like midwives really were ones that were dealing with this type of with childbirth and women care, etc. And there's a lot of, I was speaking to somebody who's a modern day, whether you call it a doula or a midwife, I don't know if there's a distinction between that. If there is,
somebody let us know in the
please.
comments, or leave us a message. Is there a difference between a doula and a midwife?
I would love to know.
I think there is, but I'm not sure, so I can't speak on it.
And I know some that are, I know somebody that's a doula, and it's clear it's not her first, it's not like her main job. So, and she speaks about all of the different issues that comes up during that process, and how there's a lot of there's a lot of encouragement to do things a particular way that it isn't necessarily best for everybody, right? So I find that very interesting.
Like home water births, or like not getting the epidural, like that type of stuff, right?
That type of stuff, doing a C-section, doing those type of stuff. And I definitely don't pretend to know much of that, right?
Me either.
So it's definitely something to come up, and we'll talk. I'll come back to the 5 parts of TCM here in a minute, because I think it's important for folks to realize that it's an entirely, totally parallel system. Like, I think a lot of people are confused about that. So, and then we've got obviously doctors that deal with strictly the heart. We've got doctors that deal with the endocrine system specifically, right? So hormone related issues, right? We've got doctors that deal with the digestive system, right? Gastrointestinal system. We've got doctors that deal with neurologists, specifically with nerve-related issues. Doctors that deal with the urinary tract, urologists, right? Um, Doctors that deal with the mind, right? So obviously psychologists, but different types, all right? And then you've got those that deal with like nerve, spine, and brain, but as it relates to like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and MS and all these different types of issues.
What's that?
Uh,
Is that a neurologist?
Neurologist, yes.
Yeah.
But in the my understanding is could be a general and one that's more specific. I could be wrong on that. So again, please do correct me if that is the case. We'd love to know.
Mm.
And then oncologist, right? Oncologist deal it. You know what an oncologist is?
My mom went to see one. However, I have no idea. Something
Okay.
around cancer.
Yes, oncologists treat cancer and its symptoms and have
Right.
very special training in this way. All right.
There we go.
Uh, Rheumatologist, which I actually didn't know what that was, right?
Mm.
But these are autoimmune conditions. Doctors that deal with autoimmune conditions. And then you have infectious disease doctors, which deals with things like flu and bacterial infections, etc. Radiologists, which
Wait,
is
go back to that last one. The infectious doctors.
yeah,
What are
infectious
they?
disease doctors.
What are they called? Something specific?
According to Hembo, no. Right. So I could be wrong on that, but infectious disease doctors specialize in diseases and conditions that are contagious. So I think they're just called infectious disease doctors.
Because I feel like
There's
those
a
are
term.
the people that we should be hearing from with all this monkeypox COVID stuff, right? Like if there is a doctor that deals with infectious disease,
I feel like there is. I feel like
I feel like that's all we should be talking about.
so they typically, where I'll be curious is at what point do we call them doctor and at what point do we call them scientist, right?
Mm,
Because they typically are working for research organizations, right?
mm,
So CDC, the WHO, and all these places, theoretically employ a lot of these individuals. And then you have those that are sponsored by other. It's like basically, what huge sum of money are you sponsored by, right? Or are you paid by, right? So all of this, really does boil down to who pays you, right?
mm.
And not to say that in a negative light, but it really does boil down to who pays you. um the really interesting thing to kind of bounce back, and if we do find a specific name for that, we would love to know. But the really interesting thing to bounce back is that in the traditional Chinese medicine, and to be clear, it's not the only system of medicine that deals with things this way. There are other systems of medicine. Ayurvedic, to be specific, is one that comes to mind, and there are other forms that utilize modalities to deal with things as a whole rather than having specialties. And the reason being is because um, specifically TCM is more focused on the relationship aspect of medicine. So, and I won't go too deep into it because I don't have the exact words to really explain it, but it's more so focused on how does X relate to Y rather than on the West, where I feel like it's more focused on systems of naming things, right? So this is where we come up with the itis and the isms and the and syndromes, right?
Yeah.
So itis being some sort of inflammation, syndrome basically being like we don't know, right? So you have irritable bowel syndrome, for example, right? And that really, and I'll quote Dr. Mike Heyman in this. It basically means we don't know what's happening, and we'll just put it in this bucket, right?
Right.
They used to legitimately not think it was like they think it was just like they used to call it, I believe, like a disease of the mind of the housewife or something like that. Like it was just like such so dismissive. Like You're just making stuff up. Like,
Wow.
oh, you don't feel good? Have a martini with 81 olives. Right. So, so it's kind of like that until it was pushed along, right?
Yeah.
But these sort of things are inherently like part of TCM, right? So they're like considered. So we look at how the different systems at play here react to one another, and that's been honestly one of the most refreshing things I've been diving into and learning in school right now. Is like it's like, oh, this makes, to me at least, that way of looking at things makes so much more sense to
Mm.
me, rather than just figuring out how to when you go a lot of Western medicine is like language. It
Mm.
really is a lot of, it's just language, learning the language. Here it's
Learning
learning the
terms.
relationships and how
Yeah,
things are functioning. All right.
that's huge. That's
And so
huge.
coming back real quick, and I'll finish this up and then we'll hop to the wealth side, is like we're looking at 5 modalities that we utilize to address health. And first, you have to understand that from this perspective, health is when things are in harmony. And by the way, I've mentioned this stuff before, Chris. You know, like it's stuff that I've mentioned, and I literally was reading this. I was like, "What? Like that's crazy, right?" That I was just mind blown. I got to the same place, like just in general, a same place
Yeah.
without ever seeing this stuff, right? So literally in the text, it's stating, translating, obviously, stating health is when the body is in harmony with the environment.
Wow.
And disease is when it's out of harmony with the environment or itself, like its organs, when the organs are also out of it says balance. They say balance. What I've said, and you could quote me on this because this is in my book, health is the harmony, right? Is when the mind, body, spirit complex is in harmony with the environment.
Mm.
All right. And this is not, to say that it was some like miraculous sort of, it just made sense based on everything that I was seeing. It's just like absolutely made sense, and having lived this stuff out.
Yeah. And
So it
it's
could,
funny, just to that point, like I don't think people understand that balance, harmony conversation and how our bodies should be connected to nature, to right, to the outside, right? Like I don't think we really understand that harmony as well as we need to. We always think that there are things, all the people that you named Western medicine wise, they're going to give some form of medication to get you back in harmony, right? They're going to give you some form of surgery to get you back in harmony. But actually, harmony is with, right, with nature, with the environment. So it's important that people understand these definitions of health and what it really is. So
I think that's critical, man. And I will say this, I've softened a bit over, right? There is a place where Western pharmaceuticals is extremely helpful. Like I'm never saying that's not. There is a place where surgical intervention is extremely helpful. I think what's happened because of the money aspect of things is that it's being overprescribed.
right, like that's the first place people go.
Correct. Rather rather than saying, and I forget doctor, I think it's Dr. Andrew Bale or Andrew something, works for University of Arizona, but he stated something very critical, and actually there's a whole kind of TED talk on it that he gives. And he goes into this stating that like as a result of the money aspect of things and the hyper focus on technology and like and the technology being also the production of pills, right? And also technology of big instruments, if you will, that make a lot of money for people, is slowly just being pushed in that direction, right? To the detriment of any sort of focus on prevention or having folks be well enough to not have to be go into those solutions. And one thing he said I think is really critical for folks to understand, and that really clicked for me, is that like if we really look at the totality of medicine, what should really happen is what we consider surgical intervention, pharmaceuticals in the Western sense, like Western medicine, should really be a subset much smaller subset or
Mhm.
specialization in the overall scheme of of medicine and healing and health, right? And then there should be a much greater focus on prevention and being in a state of harmony before you get to those things. This should be treating this being Western the pharmaceuticals and surgery should be treating acute situations that you know what, yeah, you did all the prevention, but now we're here, right?
Right.
And they should deal with it. And that's where a lot of things are missing. Now there is acute care in things like traditional Chinese medicine, but it's not as equipped because you know you're not really counting for necessarily for a bullet to go through your leg, all right?
Right.
Because
Right.
people weren't doing that.
Right. How do we
Yeah.
shift this, man? Like, how do we shift the culture, so to speak? How do we shift people understanding that, prevention and harmony is like the first place in changing the lifestyle and, the gut breath movement side, as you would put it, right? Like, how do we make that be the thing that we know people should move towards? Because again, we're here on the Good Life. Everybody that's listening, been tuned in, understand we're still talking about health, wealth, mindset, happiness, all the things that help us get to the life that we want. And so a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is really going to help you design that life. But how do we get people to see, like, I should do these things? And, should is that word, right? You shouldn't do anything, right? But like, this may help more in the beginning and as a lifestyle change than potentially going to any of these people that we named too soon. Again, knowing that there's a place for them, just like there's a place for everyone, but saying this is the primary way that if you get your body back in harmony, you may have some better results. How do we get people to see this more
Uh,
clearly?
I think that's the $8 billion question right there, man. So, I will put these things out there, and if any big institutions want to give me a call to put some money behind this, we can obviously make it make it happen. But I think there's an institutional level of things that need to happen, and then individually some things that folks can do. Right at an institutional level, I touched those briefly because maybe somebody's listening that is in a place to make an impact like that, and they can take they can start spreading some of these ideas. But I think we focus more on the individual level because that's where people can take action today and tomorrow to really help themselves out. On the institutional level, it's really kind of you gotta follow the money, right? Where's the money going? Where is it coming from? You look at things like, what does insurance choose to pay for? All
Mm.
right, insurance will pay for acute intervention rather than pay for prevention type of care. All right, so
Is that corruption in the insurance world? Like, is that the insurance side? Is that big pharma? Is that the hospitals and that side saying, "Hey, only pay for this"? Like,
yeah, so I just got my Instagram back, so so I'm not gonna put out the big corruption word here, but what I will say is, I think without there being some without going in that direction, you can say that money motivates people, right?
mm,
When you've got to feed your family and you're writing a couple things, we tend to think that corruption is only in third world countries, but you can simply just state it as where is the tide flowing? Where is the current pushing, folks?
mm,
Right? If you can have, hey, go home and do this exercise, eat this food, and do this, and come back and let's figure this out. Versus here, take this pill or do this surgery. Like, where's the current flowing?
mm,
Right? And so I don't know exactly what is happening, but what I can say is the current is flowing in the direction of what is going to bring the hospital, the doctor, the institution a little bit more funds and what is a little bit more, and that's just more popular, right? So I will say this: if that's what you want to call corruption, fair enough. If you want to call something else, then that's up to you. But I'm keeping my Instagram for right now, so
mm. We
so
got
keep that
we,
going.
we, we got YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn watching, so we're not trying
Yeah,
to get shadow banned on any of
that's
those
right. That's right.
those
That's right.
platforms either.
So there's some of that following the money as to see where things are going. There's also the institutional education, right? We talk about going through medical school and going through like what are doctors being exposed to? What are they being taught, and what is the thinking, right, that's being implemented here. There's a lot of integrative care, health, sort of movements that's going on. I mentioned the University of Arizona. All right, there's Dr. Andrew, I forget his last name, who's leading a push there to bring sort of east and west, to bring more preventative focused and intervention focused cares together, and to train doctors, MDs, in such a way that they are actually focused a lot more on pre intervention, like like where we got to dive in and use some more intrusive type of care. All right, so I think a lot of that type of thinking is going to go a long way, but it's got to be backed up by the money, or nothing is going to happen, right? And I think there's, we can go for a while on that level. Education, obviously, on the individual level, you can even touch education as well, educating the individual as to some of these things that can be done, right? So we'll go back to TCM, for example. There's a combination of acupuncture, massage, movement, food, and diet and consumption. I mean, those are all things we can do kind of on our own, right? So what if our insurance allows more funding, more money towards, hey, it wasn't until recently where acupuncture was, I believe, being paid for by insurance. If you got that good insurance, you got that Roger Goodell insurance, you have access to that stuff. But then also, I think being educated consumers, because at the end of the day, when consumers start asking for things, that's where things get pushed, and asking a little bit more questions and educating themselves, and tapping in with shows like this, and asking, and not just accepting, oh, okay, this is what the doctor says. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion, get a fourth opinion. That is something that luckily we have access to.
That's dope. Yeah, get as many opinions as possible before you make the decision of what to do with your body, right? It's important.
Wrap that up.
Quick shout out to Dana on the LinkedIn side, giving us the answers we were looking for. She said midwives provide medical care for you during pregnancy, birth, and immediate postpartum period. Doulas provide you and your family with emotional support and more. Well, that's a great definition, Dana. I appreciate that.
That is clutch. Thank you, Dana.
We appreciate that. And again, we welcome the input. We welcome the insight on all of these things, any of the topics that we're talking about. If you know something about it, hit us up. Let us know. We want to be able to take it all in. So again, we can give people the proper information to help them design the life they want. So thanks, right, Dana.
Thanks, Dana. Much appreciated. So with that said, man, let's hop on the money side of things, man. I would love to see, is there an equivalent on kind of what I'm discussing here? I know we wanted to cover the tax piece of it, which I have a few questions about for sure. Let's hop on that side, bro. Where do you want to go from there?
Let's do it. I mean, I don't know if there is an equivalent to anything that we just talked about on the health side and all that. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, there in health space, like we just kind of talked about, there is that big difference between like Western medicine and kind of this Eastern medicine, or preventative medicine, versus this acute side. So there's just two different sides to it. With money, it's kind of all blended in. At some point, you may need all of the things, all of the people that we're talking about, depending on the level of financial freedom or financial independence or financial security that you get to. You may need all of them, right? Because they all serve a different role, and they all actually have a role in the money space. It's just you probably can't use all of them right now. That's normally it.
And with all of them, bro, you want to just put out some the ones that we're talking about here, like financial advisor, financial coach, financial planner, stockbroker, investment advisor, asset managers, brokers, accountants, CPAs. Those are the people you're talking about?
Those are the people. Read them through again, because the top like 4 I know we went through last week.
Yeah. So real brief, we went through financial advisor, which is the biggest thing I think we highlighted there, was that this individual has to pass some sort of exam. right? There's some sort of exam that qualifies them to be a
Series,
financial
it's
advisor.
technically called the securities license or a series.
Securities license.
Yep, series. Normally, there's different designations to it. Series 6, Series 63, Series 65, Series 7. Those are all different designations, different tests and exams that you take, and they allow you to do different things in the industry as a financial advisor. Most of those things are going to be things that are going to put your money in investments where you could make money or lose money. So I know last week we talked a little bit about the fiduciary and kind of went that direction as well. But yeah, most of your advisors, all of your advisors, are going to have some type of securities license that binds them to make sure that they're doing the right thing for you and that they've learned a bunch about how the market works and how risk works and how to explain how to find the right scenarios or the right products for the right scenarios and advise people in the proper direction. So
yeah. So that's where you're my friends. I have a lot of friends who are. That was funny. I have a lot of friends who
look at you. Look at you.
who are taking their oh, I got to take my series 145 and series
Right.
whatever, and then they become CFAs. Right.
So,
okay.
right.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And normally they're going to go work for a big firm. Normally, right? They're probably going to go work for a firm.
What are some of the big firms?
What are we thinking about? Like Ernst & Young.
Okay, EY.
Yeah, talk about some of the other. I mean, it could be even your Merrill Lynch's, your Morgan Stanley's, your Edward Jones's of the world. Even like kind of family firms, like the higher net worth you go, the smaller the firm might be. You want to work for a hedge fund or something along those lines, you're going to need some of those licenses. But again, most of your advisors are going for higher net worth. It's kind of how the industry works. It's kind of how the industry works. One of the things for those of you that either work with me or get to know how I work, I often talk a lot about the fact that the traditional financial industry typically only wants to help the top 15% of Americans. Right? That's about it.
And why is that?
Well, because that's where the money is. Like the industry is made for people with money, right? Like if as you go into that list and you see something like an investment advisor or someone that's a asset manager, somebody that has assets under management, they literally get paid. They literally will get paid by the amount of assets that they are managing.
Right.
So you can't go talk to the 55-year-old average lady that has $100,000 in her, in her account, because you're not going to make any money doing that. You have to go find what they call the whales, right? You got to go find the $50 million. You got to go find the $20 million. You got to go find the $100 million so that you could take your 1.25% cut every year to make sure they stay inside of that investment and you make a nice $1 million every year just to, or 100,000, whatever that comes out to, right? Just to manage that money. And that's what the traditional industry does.
So to put some sort of plain English term to that, investment advisor, asset manager. So investment advisors are financial professionals that make investment recommendations or conduct security analysis. Right. So they are required to register at the state level, and they also register with the SEC.
Yep.
All right. If they manage $100 million in client assets or more.
Yeah. So
and an asset manager, just to put it in comparison, so you can talk about that a little bit, is are basically offered, right? So those services are offered by financial institutions catering to high net worth individuals, government entities, corporations, institutions, investors like colleges, pension funds, and talk about whales, right? The goal of asset managers is to maximize the value of the investment over time, maintaining an acceptable level of risk.
Exactly. So understanding those two things, and again, most times the people that we're talking to, if you're not in the top 10, top 15% of Americans or corporations, or like, you're not even going to come across these type of people. Like,
Right.
these are not in your league, but this is what they do, right? The investment advisor, like it says, is they come in and say, hey, this is how we should structure this portfolio. Take a look at how we would structure this for you. Moderate risk, this in bonds, this in international funds, this in this part, right? Like, they're advising about a portfolio and really taking a look at how that investment for that person or that company will grow over time, still managing it and being safe and all those things.
Let me ask you this. So it sounds to me like an investment advisor that advising either an individual or an institution or a group as to how to invest their money, whereas an asset management manager
Has the
is
money.
doing it for them.
Exactly.
That's the difference. Okay.
That's exactly the difference. They have the money. It's in the account. Like, they are managing it. They are seeing when to move in and out of a certain position or a certain holding, and they get paid for that side of it, right? The actual assets that they are managing. If that money continues to grow, they make more money. But obviously, the person that they're doing it for, the institution that they're doing it for, or the family that they're doing it for, makes more money also. Right?
This is very interesting because this is something I didn't quite understand, and I hope and I want you to shed some light on this a little bit. Is I read this part where it says, investors like colleges and pension funds, government entities, corporations, etc. Now, I used to work at Lending Club, where it was, so peer-to-peer lending, where you're doing. You're working with normal individuals who think they can and Ash, I'm not sure, maybe I'll put this out there, but we'll put it out there and say what great company, great people. Let me start with that as first. But on the individual side, right, they're working with normal individuals that might put something like $100, right? I think that was the minimum, $100 or something like that out there. Just your typical grandma, college student, or whatever.
$5,000 I got an extra $5,000. Let me throw it into Lending Club type of thing.
Yes, sure. Hopefully $5,000. I did definitely talk to a few way less than that for sure. But and then you have those type of individuals who are playing with like $10K or less, $100K or less. But then you have your QPs, right? Your qualified purchasers, and those guys are dealing with much larger sums. But you put even those together, and they are a minuscule, like a tiny number compared to the college fund, institutions, pension funds. Like, it's basically like 2% to like 98%, right? So on its face, if I was to look at it, I'll say, oh, this is a great place for me to put $2,000 or whatever. But the big whales and whatnot are the ones that are bringing over, I don't know how much they're bringing over.
Hundreds of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Similar thing. Highlight that a little bit more. Similar thing here for like the individual or the even the lawyer that's saying, or the doctor that's saying, oh, I have a investment advisor or whatever. Like, are you one of that tiny little, and they are working with much bigger accounts, or speak on that a little bit?
Typically, yes, right? Like, again, guys, you got to remember something, and the more that you get into the financial space and understand, you got to know that the big money runs everything, every asset class. It's where the big money is. The pension funds, the institutions, the banks, right? The hedge funds, the wealthiest, 20 families, the Waltons, you know what I mean? Like, the families that run everything. That's what dictates a lot of the market. That's where they're moving large sums of money, guys, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, potentially trillions of dollars being moved around across these high net worth individuals. So yes, you with your $200,000, with your $300,000, it's a tiny, tiny amount according to what the actual big players in the market or the big players in these advising firms are really playing with. And it takes some time to get into that network. It takes some time to land a family or an institution. A lot of times those institutions have been using the same investment advisors, been using the same firms for years because they're moving so much money. Like you take any of the colleges, again, I've talked about colleges a bunch, just as far as like, they're going to be extinct. The majority of colleges will not be around in 20 years. The
Even
middle,
with all that money they have at work,
the middle will get squeezed out. The middle will get squeezed out, meaning your, Central Iowa, your random liberal arts school that,
come on, bro.
I'm just saying, no, shout out to Iowa. I've never been to Iowa, but shout out to Iowa. But again, these middle level colleges are going to get squeezed out because they don't have the huge money, trust funds, all that type of stuff. The top 10% of brands in colleges and universities, they will be around forever. The Ivy Leagues, the Yales, the Stanfords, the Penns, the Dartmouths, those types of schools, they have so much money in trust funds. And all they do is give it to an investment advisor, give it to asset managers, and they just manage the assets over and over again, right? They just allow. I can't remember what I was listening to, but I was listening to some book. It might have been I can't remember the book, but either way, I think they were talking about how Stanford, I think it was Stanford, they've had some form of endowment or like a trust that has grown every year has doubled every year for the past 20 years because of their asset managers and where they're managing that money. Because a lot of times they're using some of that in venture capital. They're using some of it in real estate. They're using it across all asset classes. It's not just all sitting in the stock market, because that's just one asset class. That's just equities. But they're going to move that thing around. They're going to put some into, loaning that money out, fixed income. They're going to do some in the commodity side, because you're talking about potentially trillions of dollars, right? If not just high billions of dollars that are being passed down from all of these alumni that go off and keep family money and pass things down. That's why they have family names on all the buildings, because there's tons and tons of money there. That's where the industry really kind of makes its name. It's that top 15%. This is where all the money is. When people want to get into finance, when parents want your kids to go in finance, that's kind of where you want them to go. You want them to luck up and make their way up the chain so they can deal with the big money, because they basically just get paid to be smart. They get paid to say, okay, I think I can understand derivatives, or understand this side of the market, or understand this asset class. And you may make a high 6-figure, 7-figure income just by being with the right firm and managing the right bit of money. But again, it doesn't serve the masses. It really only serves the top 10, top 15%.
This is so critical what you're saying here, and this might be something to dive into a lot more at another time. But the picture that you're painting, and I'll name two individuals here: Ken McElroy and Greg Mannarino. Greg Mannarino comes in and he preaches this point as to what you just described that's occurring with colleges. The top 10% are going to continue to balloon explode, and the bottom will be saved by maybe government money or something of that nature. And community the middle college. 80% or 60% will get squeezed, and then wherever they pop is where they pop out too, right?
That's right.
Greg Mannarino explains the same thing as it occurs to society in general, right? The individual is the middle class, whether by design or not by design, is being squeezed. Right?
The middle class is an illusion. I could stay on this all day, brother. You're right. We might need another time, because the middle class is an illusion. There is only rich and poor. That is it. That is it. Right? The middle class is an illusion, because most people in the middle class are technically poor. Right? That's really what it is. Like you don't have assets. You don't have enough savings. They made you feel comfortable. Grant Cardone talks a lot about this type of stuff, right? And Ken McElroy, I'm very familiar with him too, right? Like, again, you just got to understand what's happening. That if you are not playing up with the wealthy, with rich people, with a certain amount of assets under, net worth, so to speak, you're poor.
Right?
the bridge will fall. If there is a bad enough recession, if there is a bad enough collapse, you will fall into poverty. That is just the way it goes, right? Doesn't matter what car you drive right now. Doesn't matter if you live in a 10,000 square foot house or, right? It doesn't, none of that matters. If you are not at a high net worth, and I don't even know what that number is. We might have to play around with it and find out like what that net worth is that
Yeah,
allows
let's look
someone to
into
be
that.
wealthy or rich or whatever the case is. But yeah, it's not looking good for the middle class.
Right,
It's not looking
right.
good.
And to your point, if you're not playing up there, and this is not a reason, no, I don't think you're saying this, and I'm definitely not saying this. This is not a reason to be brewing hate for folks that are in that category.
Right.
It's more of just like realizing what is happening. And when you look at the industry, which sounds like you're saying is like the industry, they got to make a living too, right? These
Mhm.
individual CPAs, investment advisors, asset management. Like, would you rather be working with Todd that has 10 million, 10 potentially even $100 million that they can hand over to you to manage, and you get 1%, or would you rather be working with I don't want to put any names out there to make it whatever it
Because
is,
you were gonna say Rodney.
I wasn't gonna say Rodney. I was actually gonna say Deshaun, but but then I was like, there are some rich Deshaun's out there. But anyway, but I think the point I'm making here is like this same is it's first and foremost is that as an individual in that line of work, it only makes sense that you'll work with the high network individuals, but that's not what you do. That's not what you fight. Gosh
Right.
darn it, you're fighting for the little guys.
Fighting for the little guy, because again, this is who needs it the most. It's literally why I do what I do. And I figured out how to do it and still support my family. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, right? We still run a business. Like we still have to support our family and not just the financial industry, even though it's very prevalent here. This happens in all industries for people that start small businesses or start businesses. At a certain period of time, people are like, man, I'm trying to do less work and make more money. So they go after high ticket. It happens across the board, right? It's like, I'm tired of doing this nickel and dime, help the people for this little amount of money. What I choose to do is let me just go work with people that have the money that want to pay me. And we constantly leave out the little guy. We constantly leave out the people that don't have the money. And it's always like, fend for yourself, little guy. No, you don't get the help in your money. No, you don't get the help in your health. No, you don't get the help in anything that you do because you don't have the money and it's not worth our business time to spend time there because we have families to feed and bills to pay and the same thing. So it's really this balancing act that, I've been blessed to figure out how to go about doing that where I could still serve everybody basically for free. Basically give them the things that they need for free and still make a living for my family just because of the sheer amount of people that need our help. So that's how I've been able to do it. And the people that are around us have been able to do it to actually serve the people that's needed. But again, the traditional financial industry is really just built to help people with money. And I understand it because it happens to most industries, right?
Yeah,
It's just the way it goes. But it doesn't mean that it's right. Doesn't
right,
mean that it's right. And we got to
right.
do some things to change it.
For sure, for sure. And what we're talking about here is I think we eventually got to the general gist of really what connects us, all right, here on the Good Life, what we do for a living. Really kind of the pattern that you see in the world in general, wherever you look, whether it's money, whether it's health, any other aspect. And it's kind of like a system that feeds itself, right? It's a system that feeds itself, and to say, hey, listen, I'm going to take this side of it where I'm giving out my services, time, money, and energy here to those that need it the most without being compensated, um to the level I could be if I decide to go a different route,
Yep.
right? Hence the term selling your soul. But again, I don't want to put the negative connotation to that because who can blame somebody that has to feed their family, right?
Exactly.
Who can blame them? But at the same time, that's what sets us apart. That's why I think we eventually got to the crux of it all. It's like, look at this entire industry and what's happening, all right? And to take this stance, to do this, guys, I'll be honest, it's not easy.
Not at
It's
all.
not easy. It's not an easy route to take, but you know, we're here for you. We're here for the good life.
That's it. We're here for the people. Everybody that's tuning in and that's watching, we care about you, right? We want you to get to the good life. We want you to make sure you have the resources necessary to get you to where you got to go. We just know these two industries, health and wealth, they're not designed to help the poor. Right? They're just not designed, but we're going to break through and we're going to make a difference. We're going to make sure you have all the tools and the resources that you need. If you see it on the screen there, sign up for our email list. We got great stuff coming for you. Every single week we're dropping an episode, getting to episode 100, road to 100, bro. We need to start a campaign. Road to 100. We're
Gotta do it.
Yeah, we're going to be switching up some of the content, bringing on some guests. Again, if you know some people that can that want to drop some gems and educate the people around health and wealth and mindset and happiness and relationships and all the things that actually it takes to get to the good life. If you know some of those people, we want to have them on the show. We want to be able to chat with them and again give you guys the information you need to take your life to the next level. So that's all we got for this week. We might have to come back and touch on some of this stuff again next week. We might skip a couple weeks and come back around to it because this type of stuff is important. Let us know. Let us know if this helped you. Let us know if there's somebody that you didn't hear us mention that you're a little confused about in the industry. And you're like, hey, what does this person do? Like, should I go see this type of person? Let us know and we'll try to answer those questions for you guys. But until
or if you know somebody, before we let you go, if you know somebody that is in one of those areas, we'd love to bring them on, after episode 100, we'd love to bring them on so they can talk specifically about what they do and how we can all work together to serve you.
I love that, man. I love that. So it's another good one, brother. It's always good having the conversation, helping people get to that next level in life. Guess we're signing off.
Con.
That's right.
Keep living the good life.
We gotta get it.